Welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane, and today I would like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Daniel Munday. He's a personal trainer with DPM Performance. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, Fiona. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for agreeing to come on. I really want to get people on who have knowledge that I don't have, who can expand on things. And so I think it's really important to get a diverse range of people on and lots of experience. So, and I know that you are really experienced. You've been in the game for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, it's 23 years it'll be this year, so
Yes.
it starts to add up.
But you started when you were 10, So.
Hardly.
We all
No.
did. We all did. We've got to stick with that.
Well, yeah, that's. I think as soon as you see me, you'll realise that I didn't start when I was 10. So, but no, look, it's
Yes.
something that is pretty cool. That for me, in our industry, the average, I don't know what it is these days, but last time I saw the stats, it was like 18 months to 2 years or whatever that a trainer stays in the
Industry.
in the fitness industry before they have to go and get a real job.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that I'm still around.
Yep, the fact that you've made it this far is well done, because it's hard yards, and the last few years in particular, I think, have been very hard yards for my business. So, good on you for still being here.
Well, I think it helps that I wasn't just starting out. I think
Yes.
if you can build a rapport, the thing I'm big on is relationships with people. And I know it's like my business has been around now since 2005. Like the first 5 years, I was just working in corporate gyms and hotel gyms, and then I just got sick of people wanting to do things their way, and I had other ideas, and I decided to go out and back myself and see if it worked. And here we are, nearly 18 years later.
Well, all I can say is well done, because any business lasts. I think the stats on how long businesses last in general, are really scary, let alone in your industry. So, before we go any further, for those who don't know you, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I think we covered a little bit there, but I think the main thing for me is outside of all that, it's the main thing that gets me out of bed every day is my two kids. I've got two girls, 9 and 5. And I've been married now since 2009 as well. So that, the family is the motivating thing to do what I do. And I guess the good thing about my job is that even though it's an early start, which is not ideal, but it's something you get used to, but it means I can choose when I want to work. And so now I get to pick my kids up from school every day because I miss out on all the morning stuff. And yes, you might leave money on the table in that regards, but for me, it was more important to build a relationship with my kids when they were younger. So hopefully I'm more than just an ATM when they get a little bit older.
Yeah, they have a relationship with you.
Yeah, so apart from that, but yeah, I'm focusing on the business side of things. Like I said, 2005, I kicked that off. The main thing for me that prompted that is something we might go into later, but my dad died suddenly. He was 53 and had a heart attack. He was a big guy, so I sort of knew in the back of my head that it would happen one day, but I didn't think it would happen that soon. And I was 27 at the time, and you're a bit, I don't know, I wasn't really happy with where my life was going, and I was just working in a job that I didn't really love in one of the gyms I was working for, and it just didn't fulfill me, and I was getting itchy feet. I was thinking about going traveling again, and then all that stuff happened with my dad, so I decided to stay home to help my mum out. And then I was like, okay, well, what do you do with yourself? Like, you're either going to just keep doing the same old, or I don't know. I just felt there needed to be something more to life. And for me, I remember being so I had an idea, like, do I go out and start a business like everyone else does? And knowing the stats, like we mentioned earlier, where some of them only last a couple of years, or do I just go and get another job? And I remember I made it down to the final 2 for another job. And I remember being in the interview and sitting there talking with the bloke, and he was a nice guy and all that, but I just remember sitting in that interview thinking, okay, I don't really want this job. That's when it came clear to me that I knew that, what's the worst thing to happen? It fails like all the other people that try business and fail, and then you go and get a real job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what that was my moment, I guess, where a line in the sand. And initially, at the time, like back in the day, I finished playing rugby, but I was working with rugby teams and coaching them, and I really wanted to get into like the strength and conditioning side of things with rugby and follow down that path, or with sporting teams or whatever. But then it hit me like, what's the point of trying to start from scratch when I've got all these corporate people that I was working with in the in the gyms in my old job, and they were asking for stuff that wasn't being offered at that time. Like at that time in the early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of focus on like group, like group training. Like nowadays, like you see groups or boot camps or whatever you want to call them, or pretty much anywhere you go outdoors or in gyms or whatever. Or there's all these little studios that have popped up now, and that wasn't around back then, and people were wanting
Mm,
something more than just a group class, like a spin class or, like an aerobics class or boxing class or whatever. They wanted something a bit more personal.
mm,
So I realized I had a ready-made target audience, I guess. So that's when I started things. And the cool thing is like a lot of these clients that I still see now are some of those early ones from back in the day too.
mm.
And
Yeah.
that's one thing I'm big on, like we said before, is building relationships. And I think the only thing that kept me going through all the last couple of years, like you mentioned, was being able, already having established relationships with people.
Mm.
And of course, adapting to stuff like Zoom and all those other things you've got to do. But, that's a lesson in itself. Like, everyone had to learn to adapt. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't have been here today if we didn't.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But not everyone did, and that's the thing. It's commendable that when people are willing to adapt and are able to, and they and again, you were talking before. It could be a whole conversation, but about being willing to fail, like having a go at stuff, and the worst thing that can happen is you fail, but at
Exactly.
least you
Like
had a go at it, sort of thing.
it's, it's, look, obviously no one wants to fail,
Mm,
but I think like, we've all failed at something in our lives.
yes.
And you just got to
Yeah.
look, I remember when, back in the day when my kids were really little and they learn how to walk, they fall over, they get
Yes.
back up.
Yeah.
Like they don't
And
sit there going, "Oh well, this is too hard."
no, and as a parent, you don't say, "Well, I think I'll just you should just go over there and sit down because, it's too scary if you learn
Exactly.
to walk, and you really shouldn't do that because you might fall over and you might hurt your bottom."
Yep.
You don't
Exactly.
do that with children, and it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I was having this conversation with someone the other day where we know that we've got to create these neural pathways so that we can walk, and so that for different things we need to do in our lives as human beings, we need to create these neural pathways, and that getting up and failing a million times is literally how the neural pathways are made
Mm,
so the baby can walk. And so we absolutely understand in that early childhood, or with infants and babies, that they actually need to fail a million times before they can succeed, and we see it as normal and natural. But we there's a certain point. I don't know where the line is, but there's a line in the sand somewhere after which we say, "No, it's too dangerous. You might fail." It's weird how we lose that innocence that babies have, where they just keep going.
I think society just breaks everyone down.
Mm,
I
yeah.
just know I remember like way before I had kids, I was watching one of my nieces like years and years ago, and like when she was only little, and I was watching her just learning to stand up and do all that sort of stuff for the first time. And I watched her squat and I'm thinking, this kid has done the perfect squat.
Yes.
And then it just clicked in me then, because I hadn't had much experience around like little kids and all that before that age. And it just made me realize that we actually ruin them as they get older, as like society or
Yes.
us or,
Yes. Sit down and be quiet and don't move
yeah,
and all of
when,
that sort of stuff.
but
Yeah.
even when it comes to exercise or whatever, something that this kid has never been taught in their life and they can do it just naturally, but then over time through whatever, whether it's screens or lack of exercise or movement, lack of movement or whatever it is, or just society just,
We lose it.
well, it is. It's a whole nother, rabbit hole you
Yeah.
could go down, but
Yeah,
that's,
yeah. Well, use it or lose it. That's pretty much it, isn't it? And that's really like today. The reason I wanted to talk to you today is that I know that you have a really common sense approach to this stuff. and you're not about kind of just, the latest greatest whatever. If the latest greatest is good, then yeah, sure, but you're about, what's the tried and true and what makes sense, and what is the right thing for that person in front of me, not kind of what's trendy. So I really wanted to get some tips for you today. So I know that I talk to a lot of clients, and they might have injuries or things like that, and they are nervous about starting training, or they don't know what it entails, and they think that that's just one of those situations. See this sort of stuff on TV shows or whatever, and I think there's a lot of myths around personal training, but there's also a lot of myths around exercise. So, as a starting point, what are tips for people who are just getting started?
The main thing is that it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. I think if you try and put too many obstacles in the way, or I can't do this or I can't do that, or if I had this bad experience or this or whatever, you're never going to get anything done. You won't leave the house. So the main thing is to just start small. It doesn't matter what you did like 10 years ago and what you did 5 years ago. Like I have had a lot of inquiries in the last the last year or so, especially of people who haven't done much since COVID. And that's the same for a lot of people. Like, they were in a good routine,
Yes.
whether they were going to a gym or they were going, they were going out, they were training by themselves, or whatever it was. Then COVID hit and everything stopped because you had to do everything. Your whole life as you knew it was turned upside down. You had to work from home. You had to homeschool your kids if you have kids. And as I found out, because my oldest daughter was quite, reminded me that, well, that's not how we learn it. And then, you go back and forth. Well, that's how I learned it in my day. And you realise you're not a teacher. But you're trying to do that while you're trying to keep your business from going under.
Yes.
So there's all this, I don't know, like it doesn't, so there's all these other things that people have had going on. And so if I say, hey, look, this isn't, like, then you've got to do X, Y, Z, then everyone's already over bombarded now, because you've got 100 different things that are, that are keeping you, or they're trying to get your attention, whether it's work, whether it's your kids, if you have kids, whether it's your social, if you're in this group or that group or whatever. And there's always someone pulling you in this direction, that direction. My whole point is I want to simplify it. So, okay, if the only thing you're going to be able to do is this, then let's do this. And that might be whatever it is for you. Based on wherever you are now, it doesn't matter where you were, start really simple. And like you said, there's so many things you can turn on Biggest Loser when that used to be on, and that might make great TV, but flogging people
That's what I
is,
had pictured in my mind when I was saying it, and I was
yeah,
like, I was having nightmares in my mind about it, because it was just awful. And if you think that that's what training looks like, you
no,
wouldn't go anywhere near a personal trainer.
no. And why do you think that you never saw a reunion show 12 months later?
Yes, I know exactly why, because I read the statistics on what happened to those
Exactly.
people.
You flog someone and you don't
Didn't
feed them,
end
and you lock
well.
them in the house away from every stress that got them to the position that they are in.
Oh, look, they lost weight.
Exactly.
Who would have thought?
Exactly. But then you
Guess what?
go
They
back
put it all
home,
back
go back
on.
to work, and you have all the stresses that got you to where you were, and you start
Yep.
eating
Oh,
food again, and you're not
yep.
training all day, then guess what's going to happen? So,
Yeah.
so the main thing, I think people put too much pressure on themselves. And if I can simplify that and to break things down and say, okay, we're just going to focus on this. And look, the other thing is, like, I'm 45 now. I'm paying for every single injury that I had when I was younger and playing football or whatever, and didn't look after my body properly.
Yes.
So, like, everyone has injuries or whatever. And the one thing I've realised, and especially working through clients that are at different ages, when we all started, people were a little bit older than me. There were some younger, some older, but it was anywhere from their 20s, 30s, 40s. Now those same people are in their 60s now.
Yes.
And they've got niggles or whatever through a lifetime of working behind a desk. Or they've got old sporting injuries. So there's something, like, I can't train now the same way that I did even 10 years ago.
Yes.
And that's, like, so all my stuff has made me realise, okay, well, if it's obviously not just me. So I've got to design stuff that's smart for you. So, like, I try and market my stuff as for people over 40, right? So, like, whether that's 40s or 50s or 60s, parents, professionals, whatever, but they've all got something. They're short on
Yes.
time. they've got all these past injuries. Some of them have past experiences where they absolutely hate the idea of exercise because of stuff like the Biggest Loser, or just they tried a boot camp, or they tried
Mm,
different things that weren't for them, that weren't appropriate for their fitness level at the time because it looks cool or it was the latest trend, like you mentioned,
mm.
um, and it's caused injuries.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if I can make things really simple and to dumb it down, and not really dumb it down is probably a poor choice of words, but just to simplify things.
Yeah, just simple. And look, honestly, like I when I'm working with a trainer, I forget everything straight away. I'm just hopeless. I just don't because because I'm working hard when I'm working with a trainer, and my brain just can't. I can't take on the information, so I kind of just do what I'm told.
But you know
But then
why? Like,
the next time I go to do it, I say, "How do you do that again?"
yeah, like it's the one part of your day, and the one thing like I always try and reinforce to people. And I had the same conversation with someone this morning. It's the one part of your day where you don't have to think.
Yes, yeah, 'cause someone
Ev-
else is doing it for you.
yeah, exactly. Like the only reason I've got a business for as long as I have, or one of the reasons, is because it's the one part of your day where you don't have to think about it. And people just
Yes,
like to have the accountability of knowing they've got to be in place at a certain time. They turn up. They're not going to have someone yell at them.
yes.
Because if you want that, I figure you'll join the army. If you want to have
Mm.
someone that's not for me.
No.
Um, so there's a lot of stereotypes that our industry does wrong, I think. But
Mm.
then I guess it's easy to market yourself the opposite. And
Yes.
if you're not the type of person that's going to yell at someone to do another push up in the mud or whatever, um, then I think it makes it a lot easier. And for those that want to do that, great. There's plenty of options. Go and join CrossFit or go and do
Yeah.
whatever the latest thing is. That's cool.
There's
I'm not going
options
to
for
talk down on
everyone.
anything because there is something for everyone and for every age group.
Yes.
Um, and the main thing for someone is to find something that works for them. And I know, like, what I do is not for everyone, and that's cool.
Mm. No, really, the message I'm getting from you is a couple of things. One, it's just begin,
Mm,
and maybe begin with a learner's mind as well,
yeah,
because we do have all the whether it's the Biggest Loser concept in our mind, or whether we've had a bad experience at a gym or with a trainer or with exercise at some time in our history. And also we lose confidence maybe as we get older, especially if we start getting more injuries. And I think that sometimes you, like you were kind of hinting at before, in your mind there's the idea of how it should be or how you should train, or you should be like it was when you were 30 or when you were
yep,
20. And I think that you've just got to be where you are, be where you're at.
yep,
And rather than that sort of unrealistic idea in your mind of what should be or how what you expect, it's just begin from where you're at. Find a way, a place, whether it's just going for a walk or whether it's working with a trainer or going to a gym, whatever it is that works for you. And if you have injuries or if you've got any fears around that kind of stuff, especially, then work with a trainer to get the right information about what's safe for you.
yeah, and just find someone that you're not, that you find that you can get on with, and you don't feel intimidated by, and then you can have
Yeah.
a a two-way relationship with, because it's got to work both ways. Like, it shouldn't be hard work, because the whole point is you want to actually, um, you don't want to dread it, because then, what's the point? They're not going to come.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, of course, working out is hard work, but it should still feel good. It should feel like
Oh yeah,
you want to be there. You want to be at that training session, and you know that that trainer is not going to give you exercises that are going to wreck your knee or whatever it is. And so, are there any myths around exercise that you think that would be worth busting today?
the main thing is, we've already gone over a lot of stuff that you don't always have to be going 100% and like doing
Mm,
stuff that just because it looks cool on Instagram or whatever. But I think the main thing is you don't have to be training for hours and hours a week. Like, the exercise guidelines do my head in,
mm,
because for someone like we mentioned before, that's under the pump, that's getting pulled in every direction with work and home
yes.
and family life and social life and what have you, and you're already stressed and tired and sleep deprived, and you just I just think that does my head in, that, and then and they see something where you need to have, I forget what it is now, but it's some stupid amount of exercise that people are recommended each week. Otherwise, it's almost why bother.
Mm,
That's the attitude that they have. It's okay for me to see something and go, okay, well, I can do X and Y and Z because I've been wired that way for so long.
mm.
Like that's my
Yes.
job.
Yeah.
But for someone who isn't in love with the idea to start with, and it's like, well,
Mm,
why even bother? So,
yeah.
so that's the first myth: is you don't need as much as what people say. There's
Mm,
so many studies and that prove even something as 10 minutes a day is going outside and getting breathing fresh air and getting vitamin D and just changing your environment and standing up and getting away from your desk and even just going for a walk.
yes.
Because when you do that over and over again, that becomes a habit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't
And
tell
it
me
is
that's not
beneficial.
you can't tell me that's not effective because they're not getting 3 hours a week of exercise or whatever they're recommended.
Mm,
Like you just see, if you try that for yourself, if you're not doing anything right now and you start going for a walk for 10 minutes a day or a couple of times a day, and you do that, let's say more days a week than you don't. In a
mm,
month, you can't tell me that you're not going to feel any better. You might feel a slight improvement with your mood. You might find that you're sleeping better.
mm.
You might
And
find you're
like
less
you said,
stressed.
there's a lot of studies that have been coming through that back this up as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just us making this up. You and I are always looking at the studies and putting it on our latest blogs or whatever, and study after study. It's not saying that everyone has to do 10,000 steps and everyone has to do so many kilometers and everyone has to do exercise for 2 hours a day or whatever. There are studies saying 10 minutes, 11 minutes a
It
day,
is.
and the other thing I think too is that the benefit from doing that regularly is that you're actually showing up for yourself.
Yep.
And I
And
think when we show up for ourselves, we get a better relationship with ourselves. We trust ourselves more.
you are. You like
We
you
get more
then.
confident.
The one thing I always say to people is you're never going to feel worse after a workout,
Mm,
and that might
no,
just be going outside and going for a walk.
mm.
And
Yep, you feel better about yourself because
yeah,
you turned up for yourself, got a bit of fresh air, vitamin
yep,
D, all the things you said, plus you got your body moving, got your circulation going.
exactly. And then if you're adding some resistance training or whatever, you're going to get those endorphins afterwards, and you may not love it while you're doing it, but if I can get people to the stage where they actually don't hate the idea of it,
Mm.
then
So for people who get confused about lingo, what does resistance training mean?
so just actually, well, it can mean anything. It can mean doing body weight exercises. It can mean doing something like, while your kettle's boiling, you might do a thing like squats. You might just stand next to the kettle and do some squats.
Okay.
You might hold, might hold like a plank position on the ground in front of the TV, and
Mm,
while the kids are climbing on you or whatever if they're little. Um, and that could mean anything through all the way through to doing something with a weight, like holding a weight. It could be using a machine in a gym or a home
mm,
gym. Just anything where you're putting your body under some stress, under some resistance, a good stress, obviously.
yes.
So there's so many different ways that exercise or resistance training can help.
Mm,
But I think the best thing is, like I said, you're never going to feel worse after a workout. But there's also, like, back to a thing that we were talking about earlier, where you don't need too long. I think there's going to be a big, it's already starting to happen, but I think there's going to be a real focus down the track on stuff called micro workouts.
mhm,
And that's just little, well, there's a few different names for it, but that's basically just small little things done repeatedly over the course of a day. So,
mm,
like I said, it might be for some people, it might be you've got a couple of minutes here. So you might just get on the ground and you might do some push ups or some squats or just simple stuff. It doesn't have to be rocket science.
mm,
And it's just moving. It might even just be a simple walk. Okay, you have what 10 or 15 minutes between meetings. And if you're working from home, because you're not doing all the incidental exercise that you missed out on, because when you go into the office, like people are, like, even if you drive to work, you've still got to work to your, you still got to walk to your office. You've still got to walk
yes,
down the street to get a coffee. Where at home, you're less likely to be doing all those little extra movements. So
mm,
these micro workouts of just going outside and just walking around the block for 10 minutes if you get a chance.
yes,
Um, and if you do that a couple of times a day, and like I know some people that have meetings, like they go outside, they've been at a computer all day and they'll have a phone meeting, a teleconference or whatever, and they just go for a walk.
mm,
Like there's obviously some ones where you can't do that because you need to be present, you need to be writing stuff down, or you need to actually be seen.
Yeah.
But if you can just be a participant, then
Mm.
there's so many different things that you can add into your life, even if you are under the pump. That I just, if we can have one thing that people take out of today, is it doesn't have to be hours and hours of exercise. Just do what
Mm.
you can, start small,
Mm.
and that becomes normal. So then you build
Yes.
on that progress
So
over time. That's when it all starts to add up.
absolutely. And you said, if you just learned a few basic things, like, so if you learned about whether it's squats or whether it's, even if it's push-ups against the wall, or whatever it is that you do while you're boiling the kettle, whatever it is that's the right thing for you. So there's something like that you could do for 3 or 4 minutes, or however long it takes to boil the kettle. Like you said, walking around the block, whatever it is. But if you get in the habit of just learning 2 or 3 different things, and just start with one thing, just start with one, and you also get in the habit of thinking about your day, of looking for opportunities.
Mm,
Like you were just saying, you're looking for opportunities. You're saying, well, that meeting, I actually don't have to participate. I'm just supposed to show that I'm there.
yep, exactly.
So I can put in my headphones and go around the block and
Yeah,
just listen to people in that meeting, or it is like, it might be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've got 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the next thing. You could go around the block, or you could just go and do 5 minutes worth of, you could do some yoga stretches, or like whatever it is. I
yeah,
don't know,
whatever
but
your thing is, and obviously, you got
you
to
can do
take into
something in
account
that time.
injuries and what have you. So
Yeah.
squats or push-ups might not be good for one person, but
Yeah.
there's always something you can do.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There always is something, and it's learning what that something is for you, which is why you would speak to someone like you, just to get that right advice. So if you're kind of nervous about what that looks like, or what your exercises should look like, obviously you start with a professional, just so that you start in the right place.
Yeah,
But you certainly, someone could teach you just some little mini workouts, or 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, and you can just take advantage throughout the day. Because even just as simple as, I've seen. On television with one particular trainer, and who's working with people who had a lot of issues going on, and they were kind of just getting up out of their chair and then sitting down, and getting up out of the chair
mm,
and sitting down. Obviously they're holding on to make sure they didn't fall
yep,
over, but they were doing this, and that's still a form of
it's
exercise. So
movement.
if you're sitting in front of the TV, or sitting somewhere, or you're sitting in a meeting, but it's a meeting where it doesn't matter, you can get up and down or whatever, you could be doing that. So it is looking for those ways of just bringing in little bits here and there, and not having this idea of, it means I have to get into my active wear, and I have to go to the gym, and I have to do this thing, and I have to look like this, and it has to be like this, and it has to be this long. It's like, get all that out of your head and
Yep,
go, okay, how can I, where are my opportunities to move my body every day?
yep.
And maybe get advice around what that could look like if that's really overwhelming and you
Yeah.
don't really
Well,
know where to start.
another easy way that I started to add things in, when I take my daughter to netball training, like there's an hour there, and if it's either stand around in the middle of winter when it's dark and it's cold,
Mm,
or I could walk around the netball courts.
yes.
So I put my
Yeah.
headphones on and I go and walk around the netball courts.
Yes.
So I can still see what she's doing because the netball courts are right there. They're not massive ones where she trains. So you walk on the same lap, for an hour. But
Yes.
so I'm still there. I can still see what she's doing, but I'm also doing something for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's face it, how many of us in those situations are just scrolling on our phone?
Yeah. I do enough of that. The last thing I want to do if I'm outside, I
Yeah.
don't need another excuse to sit there in front of
Mm.
the phone looking at something that's not going to be doing anything for me in the long run.
Yeah.
It's my time of day when I can switch off and where you don't have to think about work or look at
Mm.
what so and so's doing or whatever.
Mm. And to be honest, if we look at our data, what is that little screen time thing that you get on your phone once a week?
Yeah, I don't want to know
I think most of us,
that.
I mean, if all of us who say we don't have time to exercise, that's just simply not true. It's about what you think that looks like, and like we were saying before, while you're boiling the kettle,
Yeah,
while you're at the kids' netball game, whatever it is, that there is always opportunities. It's actually just being open minded and looking for what they are,
I think that's the
and
key is just being aware and just being open to the idea. And it doesn't have to happen every time. And
mm,
sometimes you've done something and you go, well, I really could have done, X, Y, Z. Then there's times when I thought, what, I could have got out today and gotten 20 minutes on the spin bike or done whatever. It is what it is. You move on. You deal with it. You file that away. Okay, I was stressed. I should have gone outside and done X, Y, Z, but it didn't happen. So,
mm,
but now I know next time, okay, when I'm feeling like that, this is what I really should be doing because I know I'm going to feel better afterwards.
yeah. Yeah. And you will soon learn. You were talking before about how you feel afterwards, and the things that you start to notice, and your mood and energy and all different things will begin to change, and you will begin to know that it's what you need. So you're
Yeah.
like, I really, really need, like, I went for a walk earlier this morning and I had all these things to do, and I thought, oh, my head just got scrambled. I was at a meeting early this morning, my head got totally scrambled. I thought, no, I'm not going to achieve anything. I'm going to go for a walk.
Mm.
So I did. I just went out for a walk in the sunshine, and I came back and my my brain's working
Yep,
again.
exactly.
I
It
literally
clears.
had to
It's like a
do it.
reset. It's turn the
It
computer off
is.
and you turn it back on.
It is. And I'm really proud of myself because I've got to a point where I can go, that's what I need.
Yeah.
I need to move my body. And it is that. And it's, start from where you are, be who you are. You're not competing with anyone else. And you're not competing with your younger self. You're not competing with some other person at the gym or whatever. It's just about you improving your life. And making your life better. And for me, a lot of exercise for me, it's about being functional and just having independence and functionality as I get older. And that's my sort of focus. So it's like, okay, if I'm not doing this, I won't have a choice one day. So
No, that's
I'm
it.
going to do
That's,
it.
the whole thing I know, like going back to what happened earlier with my dad, I know that I'm predisposed to something like that happening. So I know if I sit
Yes.
around and do nothing, I know what my future's going to look like.
Mm,
And now I've sort of got to do it where I've got to look at it from the point where, especially now with a couple of young kids, like I want to see them grow up.
yes. Yep.
My dad never got to meet them. He didn't meet my wife. He didn't see any of that sort of stuff. So he's missed, and the
Yeah.
same with my brothers and sisters. So he's missed a lot.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
know, and that's not a sob story or whatever, because there's plenty of people that have had it worse than that. But when they might lose their dad early or whatever, or parent early. But
Yes.
it's a wake up call for me that if I don't move, then that's not fair on them. So it's about something bigger than me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You're right.
but yeah, like I think if the biggest take home point is that if someone starts, if someone can listen to this and go, you know what, it doesn't have to be this hard. I'm sick of feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm stressed. I'm tired. I'm whatever. And it's like I said, you're not going to feel worse after a workout, and especially if you're doing it right. If you
Mm,
are feeling worse after a workout, that means you flogged yourself and you've gone
yeah.
too much too soon. So my whole
Yes.
point when I start with someone, I call it like a charity workout almost. You ease them in,
Mm,
and my whole point is not to flog them. I don't need to
yes.
prove how tough I am
Mm,
because it's not about me. And
no.
I think that's where a lot of trainers lose the picture, because it is about them. They make it about them. Shirts off selfies on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
I realise it's not about me. And if I send someone a message the next day and see how they're feeling and go, well, actually, that was pretty easy, then that's good. That means I've done my job, because
Yes.
it makes them think, oh, hang on a minute, that wasn't that hard. So
Yeah. And it
next
makes
session,
them
we
think
do
they
things a little
can
bit
do
more.
it. It makes them think they are capable of doing
Yeah.
it as well. If you psych someone out completely the first time,
No, they're not
uh,
going to
you
come
know
back. So what's the point of that?
exactly. And I think, look, if there was a theme to any of this, I would say there's a few things. One, it's that we just need to begin. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to look like any specific
No.
picture. It has to look like whatever your life looks like, and it's threading it in to your life, however it's going to work for you. And not caning yourself, not getting angry at yourself because you shoulda, coulda, woulda. Just get back up there and do it again and have another go. Get the right advice, and also to, I think, what you were touching on there, where you were talking about your dad, and it's a really important story, and everyone's got their version of their important story, but it's a really important one for you. And I think it's understanding what your motivation is and understanding why you're doing it,
Mm.
and you've got a very, very clear reason why you're doing it. So you know that if you've got any say in it, you're going to be there for your girls
Yeah, that's
when they
it.
grow up, right?
Yeah, like I don't.
And
The closer I get to my dad's age, he was 53, so I'm 45. The closer I get, I'm thinking, well, really, that's not that old.
yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah. So there's
and
your motivation.
yeah, and my girls came along a little bit later too, so
Yes.
they wouldn't be very old at all if something like that, if history repeated itself.
Mm,
We could all get hit by a bus tomorrow, or whatever, but that's like
yeah.
I can only do what I can
We
control.
can only do the bits that we can
Exactly,
control,
but
and we can get off our backside and we can move it.
exactly, and there's a few lessons I guess I've learned along the way too, and it's listening to people
Mm,
for one, and listening to my clients, like, they might just make an offhand comment, like what seems an offhand comment, but then you think about it. Like so years ago, a couple of years ago now, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was,
mm,
I had someone just say to me just one morning, like just off, out of nowhere, so the only reason I like coming is because, this is like in the middle of winter and it's like 6 o'clock in the morning and it's dark or
mm.
whatever. And
Freezing.
yeah, exactly. And it's cold. And she's like, because you don't do burpees. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, it's sort of, so I'd sort of made a subconscious decision, I guess. Everyone does burpees, but everyone hates burpees.
Mm,
And I realized that, all these people that I was training, all these ladies, they were like 50 odd. And it's like, no, we don't do it because they're not the best exercise for your back, like jumping all this stuff and getting all these positions,
yes.
and you got this niggle and that niggle.
Mm,
And then I realized that, well, I might as well make a song and dance about that, because I never, while I subconsciously hadn't done them for a while, it's I made a point of like putting that into marketing, or or putting it in writing or on the website or whatever, because it's the whole point for me is to train someone, is to get someone moving. And if they think, well, if I'm just going to have to do burpees if I go and do exercise, or it'll just be like another boot camp where I've got to wear the same t-shirt as everyone else and get yelled at,
yeah, yeah,
then it's going to turn them off. Where if
yeah,
someone looks at that and go, well, I want to do burpees, then it's not for them.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
and I
exactly.
had someone earlier this year that I was speaking with, and he said, "Oh, I looked at your website, and it's not for me."
Mm,
All right, well, great, because then it wouldn't have worked out for him, and we wouldn't have been a good fit together. So he's
yeah,
better off going for something where he needs to be pushed a bit more. And look, to be honest, he was only in his 30s at the time from memory, so
yeah.
he's got a couple of less Ks on the body than we do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you've really got to go to the right place for you, and it's really got to be about what's going to work for you. And I think if we focus on that and just start where we're at.
Yep,
Honestly, I think the kind of really good messages is just make it simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. Just get started, even if it's just starting to walk around the block. If that's your
it
first
is.
thing you want to do, and just show up for yourself, because the more that you do it, the more benefit that you'll get from it.
No, that's right. And look, the other thing too, that a lot of people will talk themselves out of it because that, oh, no, what will people think? Everyone will be looking at me. You know what? No one cares.
Mm, yeah,
There's two
yeah,
reasons for that.
exactly.
One, everyone's too busy focusing on what they're own doing. But two, if you're in a gym these days, like it's Generation Me anyway,
Yeah,
they only think
I
about
know.
themselves, and they've got their Instagram workout. Like workout doesn't count if it's not on Instagram, and they're too busy looking at themselves
They
in their
are.
selfie, in their selfie,
Yeah.
on in their camera to worry about what you're doing over in the corner anyway.
I went to a gym once where they had, the whole kind of mirror section where all the He-Man were. That was the walkway to the ladies' bathroom, and so I used to feel really, "Oh, geez, I don't really wanna walk past there. All these men will be looking at me like this silly old lady," or whatever, you know? They didn't see
No,
me. I could
exactly,
have walked along there naked, they wouldn't have
exactly.
known
No
I
one
was
cares.
there, because they were all looking at
Exactly,
themselves, and they are so focused on themselves in the gym. No one cares. They
exactly.
honestly don't care. It's the amount of time we think people are so interested in us, and they're just so not. Everyone's so caught up in their own stuff.
They are, or
Most of us are
everyone's
not
too.
really thinking about other
And
people.
even if they're not self-absorbed, they're too busy concentrating on what they're doing anyway in their own workout.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, to worry
And if
about
you do,
you.
if they're the type of person that likes, the being around people, then a gym or a group setting might be for you.
Yes, yeah.
Because and if you find the right spot for you, you're only going to find everyone's there supportive anyway, because they're all there for the same reason you are.
Yeah, they're all in it
No,
they're all in it for the same reason. Yeah,
exactly.
you soon find out when you go to the gym that, "Oh, there's people like me. Who would have
Yeah,
thought? There's people older than me."
exactly.
At my gym, there's a lot of young people at my gym, but there's a man who's there every day, and he's about to turn 70,
That's awesome.
and there's everything in between, and it's great. It's like, "Yeah, okay," and the young ones don't even know I'm there. It doesn't matter. And what do they need to? Who cares? Like, who
No, who
needs to
cares? You're
know?
there for you.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Anyway, like, you and I could chat about this all day,
You got
but
me
we won't.
started.
But, thank you for just, like, some of those simple tips. I think we've just gotta get started, get over it, get started, and start somewhere. Now, if we want to, if my listeners or people watching on YouTube or Rumble, if they want to find you, where can they find you?
Couple of spots. So dpmpersonaltraining.com.au is my website. There's a blog section on there. I like to put out something every day there's an email that I send out to people every day, which is just a sort of a short, sometimes it's never too long, but just with my 2 cents worth for the day, or I might share something fitness related, or just something to try and pump the tires up a bit without the over stereotypical rah fitness,
Yes,
over
I'm
the
on your
top
list. You
person.
get me thinking.
So,
You get me thinking.
well, yeah, like the whole point is it's not just a sales pitch every day.
Yeah.
It's if I can try and make people conscious about doing something, then that served its purpose. So they can, you can go to the website and you can join that if you like. Otherwise, it'll say some information about where I train. Like I do personal training and group training,
Mhm.
and so all my groups are either at Lilyfield or Observatory Hill in the city. But personal training is a bit more.
Which is in Sydney for anyone who's listening anywhere else who doesn't know where we're
That's
talking
true.
about.
But yeah, personal training stuff, that's a bit more mobile, and there's also online stuff I do as well, because you need to adapt these days.
So what is the website?
So dpmpersonaltraining.com.au. But yeah, you'll find me on Instagram, DPM Sydney, or LinkedIn as well. Pretty
And
much
you
in.
also have a podcast on it's
Yes,
on
Top of the
Spotify?
Hill is so it's a podcast. It's got 99 episodes. I stopped it at 99. It might get resurrected, who knows? But so Top of the Hill, fitness for busy parents over 40 is what it's called.
Okay, and that's on
Um,
Spotify.
yeah, anywhere like Spotify, Apple, wherever you can find
Okay,
podcasts
so
for
all
the
the
most
places.
part.
Good.
So there's that there too, and that's just short, sharp bursts of little, my little thought for the day or whatever.
Yes.
Keeping in line with my theme that you don't need to be going on for hours with your exercise. I keep my podcast message short.
Yes. Yeah. So except for when you come on with me, because I don't do the short version of anything.
You ask questions. If it was just me, no one wants to listen to me talk for 40 minutes.
So thank you so much, Daniel, for coming along today. I really appreciate it, and all of that information. And we'll put links in the show notes as well for anyone who wants links to any of those things that Daniel was just talking about. But thank you for just some sensible advice around just getting started.
Nice. Well, thanks for having me, Fiona. I've been enjoying listening to the podcast, and hopefully we can help someone out by just trying to make things a bit more simple. And and the main thing is just don't overthink it. Just get outside and start moving.
I think that's a lot of things in life. Don't overthink it. I think that's a really good life motto, actually. Don't
Exactly.
overthink
There you go.
it. So, anyway, thank you for those who are listening and watching today. And please, wherever you are, if you can like, subscribe, share, all those things, I would really, really appreciate it to get more people listening and watching this show. And I will talk to you all next time. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.